Hi, it's a peace and blessing unto you. Hope everything's cool. Um, we need a relationship with our Savior, our Messiah, which means that we continue with Him every day. In this video, I would like to discuss the founding and the defunding of the police force. Now the police force was started in London to ensure that the local businesses would be thriving, that nobody would be stealing from the shops, nobody would be breaking the windows, nobody would be breaking into houses, taking things. There may have been a few other reasons why the police force was started, but that's how it was sold to the public, so as to protect their property. And so that's why common law experts like Karl Lentz, going back to books written in about the 17th, 18th century, the basis of law is against bodily harm, or against physical harm, and against theft of property. That's all the police force really exists for. And these are the two laws that the modern state, if you like, was built upon. Well, that's how at least it was sold to the people. And now we see in the 20th and 21st centuries how the police have been used for really a political means. How they were actually used in Nazi Germany as well. They didn't protect their own citizens because of the government told them to basically stand off, and that the Nazis were all about rounding up the gypsies, the fringe of society, who they didn't like, the Jews, some Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses were also included in that. And I'm definitely not an advocate of the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I've got to be an advocate of freedom of speech. And even though the left, as we know, are talking about defunding the police force, as in a free society, I think it's still up for debate. So that's why I'm making this video. Now, in past communist regimes, and even Nazi Germany, really they used what was called a Gestapo, or they used an actual force outside the police force, usually a sort of an army, whereby they would go and get the people that they didn't want, they didn't like. There's a lot of Jews, of course, executed in Russia. It's up to about 40 million people murdered there, which is more than twice what was actually murdered in Europe in the Second World War. Some people say 6 million Jews in total, at least about 12 million people executed in the death camps. Okay, and there are very many death camps around Europe. I don't think any of them were in Germany. Very few of them, at least, were in Germany. Most of them were in Eastern Europe, what we know as Eastern Europe, and Poland as well, which is still in the West today. And as we know, there seem to be a lot of makeshift concentration camps in America that's been spotted by the American public for the past 20 years. Some Walmarts look as if they could just be converted into some type of a prison at the drop of a hat. They have watchtowers and all of that. They'd be introducing gates as you go in to the malls and all that stuff, which could be locked. It's almost as if they're just waiting for a time where they can just lock everything. We've already had a social lockdown during the so-called fake pandemic. But what I'm trying to say is the system that we presently have can be used for good or can be used for evil. Just as well as a communist system, it depends on who is heading the actual system. Obviously, the communist system is very flawed in a lot of ways. The socialist system is extremely flawed. They say that the system's really built in order to look after the people's needs and the poor people's needs, but it ends up just being an execution device. And that's it's been used in the past by governments So really people shouldn't be dumb enough to fall for a thing like that again. So while we still have some daylight left, I don't know if there is that much, but while we still have some freedom left, we still can, let's say, discuss the issues at hand. And as we've listened to, looking at the options on the table, the current US president, he did actually a very good job up until, this year, where everything's gone a little bit crazy in the world. Doesn't really matter who would have been the president, it's extremely challenging. And obviously he's expected to just, he's defunded the World Health Organization. He's done a lot of good things actually, the president. He's actually given cures for this COVID as well, very early on. The hydroxychloroquine, I think it's called, and a couple other things like zinc, which he basically had these cures. A lot of doctors were already using them to fight malaria, and there's a strain of malaria in this so-called virus, which isn't a virus. But anyhow, enough of that. I'm really on just to talk about the fact that I know there's a lot of good police officers and a lot of bad police officers, but over the past 100 years, I would say at least, is that the police force have been used mostly to enforce government statutes which are not laws. In other words, the police don't know what the laws are that they're trying to enforce. They don't understand that they're only there to protect the public. They're there to serve and protect. How many police officers have actually taken that oath? And if they have, you really got to hold them to that oath. You can ask them, have you taken the oath as a police officer? Yes. Well, you know that you're here to serve and protect me, the public. And if they're not doing that, you should really hold them responsible. Now, the fact is that they have been used by corporations, governments, even individuals who've went and paid the local police forces. When this happens in third world countries, money's put up, they go and collect something that apparently belongs to someone, i.e. children, i.e. property. Maybe there's a little bit of pieces of evidence, and the police just decide, well, should we do it? And then the money's produced, and they're like, okay, let's go ahead. So this is the kind of thing that happens in third world countries. I know in South America, there's a lot of drug gangs, and basically, the local people are at a wit's end. Sometimes the only defence they have is the local police force, and they got to fund them. That's their sort of first line of a defence in a lot of poor communities where, again, children, teenagers are being abducted and all that stuff. I understand that. I understand that argument is different in different parts of the world. But at the same time, my argument would be, if we did defund the police force, there should be something better to replace it with. In other words, the taxpayer has a right to hold responsible those who they are actually paying with their taxes, those who we are actually funding with our taxes. We have a right to hold these authorities which society has set up. I mean, the Bible, Romans 13 is used an awful lot to defend what governments do. Now, we're told in Romans 13 to pray for our governments and support our governments as long as they don't infringe in good works. And again, you look at the track record of the police force the past 100 years, especially, let's say, in the West, and they have gone ahead and they have stopped a lot of good works that they have had no right to actually do. And I think that's a broad case right across all races, all cultures, that we've watched these people make an absolute pig's ear of many, for example, murder cases, for example, false convictions, for example, the word bent cops, which we all know that there are cops that get paid off by the local mobs in order to turn a blind eye to crimes that are going on. And this is not good enough. This is, I would say, at least it is more than 50-50 good and bad, according to what these local police forces are doing. All they're doing really is traffic cops now. There wasn't originally any traffic cops, but now there is. And now there's speed cameras. Now there's cameras everywhere. Now there's basically, if you move in your car, you've probably got a high chance of getting a ticket due to some law they've just passed. And this is not good enough. It's not good enough. Especially if you go to the UK is probably the worst in the world at this. Your area might still be just about okay if you stick to the speed limit, you obey all the laws, you know, you pay your parking fees and all that stuff. You might just be okay. But we know that sometimes these machines don't work. Sometimes there's little signs that you miss on the road that's written in small writing that you can't see. They're not interested in these things in a court. They don't even listen to these. They could just call them excuses. Well, I was driving along at the 30 mile an hour. You know, I happened to be, you know, looking over this direction. There's a sign over there that said, reduce your speed to 10 miles an hour because this is a speed restriction zone, something like that. You just, you know, there's no cars in front of you. It's not a busy road. You know, and you maybe fail to go down to 10 miles an hour. Next thing you get a ticket through for £200. You know, this happens regularly in the UK. So that's one of the reasons, as well as many other reasons. I just watched a video online in Newcastle where we had a family who are just sitting with their daughter. She's in intensive care. All they're doing is just sitting with her. And the doctors, or whoever it was, maybe the nurse in charge, calls the police to move the parents away from their child. So again, this is a misuse of the police force, and the police force should know. They use words like, it's a good suggestion we're making. They know that they don't have a right to do what they're doing. They don't have a right to move parents away from their children. But I tell you what, if you stand up to them and say, look, maybe it is a good suggestion in your eyes, but we're not going to do it. We're not going to comply to your suggestion because we're under the law. You're not obliged to tell us where and what to do. This is a public place. We're with our daughter. So if you don't mind moving along, we're not causing a disturbance. You're the ones that are doing it. But they do not back down. It's almost as if that they think they got to follow through with every false charge that anyone gives them, so that they're doing their job. That's not doing your job, police. Moving parents away from your children when the child is dying. You know, giving someone a speeding ticket when all they're doing is actually observing the speed limit. And maybe they just missed the speed restriction zone, whatever that is. And nobody even explains what these are. They're not lawful. They're not lawful in anyone's eyes. Least of all the police force, but they go ahead and carry these convictions out. So it's not good enough. The point is, yeah, there's a very good case for defunding the police, but we should discuss what it should be replaced with. The original model of the officers which are actually enforcing the law, not government statutes, but the law, where they're protecting your property. If anyone is doing any harm to you, they can then arrest that person. These are lawful officers. Anything over and above these two things, they are criminals. They are actually aiding criminals, oppressing the people of this planet. Okay? So for those that love the police force and all of that, maybe open your eyes a little bit and figure out that there's a lot of wickedness that they're being used for. And indeed, when they're actually going to be forcing vaccines on people that don't want them or need them, you know, well people that maybe even they've had a form of the so-called flu virus and now they're immune to it and they don't need a vaccine, but these complete, you know, imbeciles, for want of a better word, are going to just enforce government statutes In other words, they're going to enforce the mark of the beast on you. You, the taxpayer, are paying for their wages. And nobody's really holding them responsible enough. And there's a lot of evidence against individuals. You look at the Maxwell case right now. You look at all the pedophilia that's going on worldwide. A lot of the government people and different people involved in it that we've seen. Epstein. The list just goes on. And we've had one or two arrests, but the perpetrators, the ones right at the top, are always protected. And obviously they have their people in the top ranks of the police forces worldwide to ensure that the real perpetrators are never caught. So you go ahead, if you want to defend funding the police, you go ahead. You go ahead and do that. Me, I'm not in favour of left-wing politics, but I have to say, I'd be in favour of defunding the police to replace it with a far more effective outfit, which of course will be funded by the public, but has to answer to directly the public. Okay? Which actual fact, that's the present situation. They do answer to us, but the fact is that they're not answering to the public right now. So there is a very good case to defund the police. So tell me what you think, guys. I know it's a big subject. A lot of people are fully in favour of having the police. I don't know. Even in nations that you're not allowed a firearm, I don't see what good they're really doing, except that they're doing a lot of wickedness. If you have a firearm, I believe you can defend your own property. You know what I'm saying. So tell me what you think, guys. Shalom and Yeshua.